Okay, this is just a reminder of the water reserve forecast. If we do just a 10-cent standard increase across the board, just an estimate on our transfer to reserve, that will change year to year, obviously. Some capital projects, and we can see how with taking 200,000 out, even in 2027, we're not putting enough into reserve to offset that. So we're still only putting 180 in and taking 200 out. So it's just a thought that we might have to be in a place that we start increasing a little bit more to start building that up a little bit higher. Okay, was there anything you wanted to talk about or dig deep in water, or, and just a reminder, any cuts we do won't have any effect on the bottom line. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't cut things if they're needed, but. Okay, then we can move on to wastewater. So very kind of similar to water. The SRD has given us their budget for next year, which will be a 13-cent increase. And then we also did an increase, but we did a 20-cent increase. So we're really only seeing an 8-cent increase this year. So we do have an operating project. So this is a manhole repair and replacement. So that's being funded out of here. The engineering services for the town, and this is just general engineering, gets paid out of this. Anything to do with a specific project or a capital project does get looped in with that capital project costs. So they do share a summer student. Along with water, they pay for the SCADA, first calls and instrument tests, but they also pay for coveralls. They have a transfer to equipment reserve in the amount of $35,000. But because this department isn't fully funded yet, we are pulling from reserve to balance this department in the amount of $73,859.
So in addition to the manhole repair replacements, are we doing anything else that might be associated with reducing I&I?
Specifically towards I&I, no, this is our target, is from what we can see, our biggest infiltration right now is this. This summer in 2023, we will be doing further investigation though to see if we can find more higher areas. But pretty much all of our replacement projects, 46th Ave that we're presenting, 45th, those all represent I&I. I think that because their material's in bad shape, obviously, groundwater is coming in, so that should help.
It's actually a crossroads though that we've gotten to, because I can't remember being a counselor that we didn't have a bunch of relining. Did we do relining this year?
We did not do relining this year.
Was this year the first year we didn't, or?
We did.
I'm just curious.
I don't think we did anything last year either.
Okay.
So we've been focusing on manholes.
Thank you.
So I'm curious, maybe more of a question for Director Jenkins. Is there any programs out there to incentivize people, like the government programs, to go to low flow shower heads? Like it's interesting at the Wastewater Commission, we look at numbers like Red Deer County and we think of the gasoline alley and how huge that is. And even though they continue to build out, you don't see the volumes rise very much in Red Deer County. And Michael was attributing a lot of that to, you know, it's new, it's modern. You don't have the I&I, obviously, that older areas do, but also the low flow shower heads and all sorts of things. And
so we still do have our toilet replacement program through the town that goes that way. Yeah, beyond, you know, there are some sort of rebate type programs you can do on certain things. They're not typically that substantial.
okay.
On that end. Asset management with Curtis and our department as well, we're part of a climate cohort for asset management where they're looking for sort of climate resiliency type strategies and projects, and we're utilizing sort of the I&I as our case study that we're working on through that. So that's one way that we're going to attempt to continue to find improvements there.
Maybe some education. Like I don't know if somebody had a older home and they have a regular shower head and they go to a low flow, like how many
what they would save.
Yeah,
Yeah.
how many cubes difference would that make if you're a family of 4 or something? And
It definitely, I think, helps in most areas for reducing faucets and all those different things. One of the challenges, though, that we're finding, particularly in the, I call it the West Leslie subdivision, is promoting, a lot of the businesses that have low flow, Equus being one, the Dodge dealership, which is great. Unfortunately, that's creating issues for us because there's no flow in the sewer, so now we're flushing. So now we're having to flush those mains on a regular basis, so at this time, ultimately, once it's built out, hopefully that will have an advantage, but unfortunately, it's created a challenge.
well, it's such a good point, because we talk about that at wastewater all the time. You know, we don't want the I&I, or communities, we don't want the I&I, but if you don't have the flow, then you've got other issues that
Yeah.
come up, or you've got this high chemical use. I mean, that's one of the reasons we're seeing an increase from wastewater, is because the chemical contract has come to an end, and
Exactly.
it's going to go up dramatically, and you're using 5% of that capacity maybe in that system, and so it's kind of like, do you want the flow or not want the flow? So we saw what happened in Olds last year with a $100,000 bill going to the town of Olds. So, yeah, it's interesting.
Okay. Okay, so the next couple of slides, I did just do kind of a reserve forecast for wastewater. So the first one would be kind of where we're gonna sit at now. We're going up by 20 cents a year. And you can see that the transfers to reserve for the first 3 years are actually a transfer from reserve. And it's not until years 26 and 27 that we're actually putting money into reserve. And you can see how far depleted it got down in 2027. It's only down to $34,000 if we maintain the increases at 20 cents, just like this. And on the next slide, I just did an estimate of what it would look like if we did 40-cent increases, and you can see the amount of money being transferred into reserve. Finally, in 2027, we're putting more in that we take out in 2027. So that's ideally where we want to be in the long run, but it will take us quite a while to get up there.
Yesterday, I'm not sure if it was this slide, did you have an estimate of what that would be like on average for a household, or was that another chart that you had?
So there's something in your water reserve, under your water, behind the estimate. So I did do a consumer monthly changes for 2023. So at our current rate at 20-cent increase for wastewater and 15-cent increase for water, we're seeing a $3.50 a month increase on utilities.
On 10 cubes.
On 10 cubes. That's generally probably a family of 2, not a family of 4. Family of 4 is probably closer to 15.
I'm on sewer.
Yeah, underwater.
Oh, thanks, sorry. Jumping ahead here. Oh, right, that's what it was, okay. Thank you.
So yeah, is there any discussions on that? Yeah. Yeah, so the 20-cent increase is all that's in the budget. At some point, maybe not this year, but at some point, we will be coming probably to look for a bigger increase than that. Yeah. But we already are doing a 4% increase, so on that sheet, you can see that they're seeing $350 a month for utilities and $746 a month on average for taxes. So the residents are gonna see, about an 11-cent per month increase already, so. Or $11, I'm sorry,
You're like, done.
yeah,
I'm gonna go check.
there you go, right? So, yeah. Okay, So is that, solid waste is good, or sorry, wastewater is good for now? And we'll move on to solid waste. So this is kind of like two departments. We do have solid waste, so that's the garbage services, and then the transfer station is all included in this department. So let me just find my sheet of notes here. So in garbage, we have not requested any change into the garbage costs. As well, no change to the contracted services until the end of, the contract goes until 2024, I believe, and which then the rate will change at that point. Yeah. There is a transfer to reserve in the amount of $32,449. That is earmarked to go to the general cap reserve, and that was to pay back the purchase of the garbage bins way back when.
So Director Kennedy, I believe Councillor Bates mentioned this yesterday, the organic bins. We're on bi-weekly now again, right? Did we talk a few months ago about doing potentially monthly, or did we not? Sorry.
We did not go to
Okay.
reviewing
We
monthly.
didn't talk about that,
No.
okay.
But we can bring it up when we're doing our solid waste update to council. We can have that discussion further.
Okay, and yet we do have the transfer station on there as well, and that primarily pays for the transfer station, the employee that goes there. There's some minor repairs and maintenance for, we do have a shack as well as a bit of equipment out there. Yeah. Okay. And then just up on the screen as well is just that utility-based, that's just the total monthly bill. You have the breakdown in your binders, but you can see how from lowest to highest where we are, and you can see it's almost like Bowden and Penhold are lower than us, and as the municipalities get bigger, the monthly bill gets more expensive. Because I think the bigger you are, the more water pipes and sewer pipes you have, the more expensive it is to pay for, unfortunately. So. Okay. So the next department is FCSS. So this is the revenue in this department. We do receive our FCSS grant from the government. That is the primary source of revenue for our FCSS group. This department did see the introduction of a manager instead of a coordinator this year, so the salaries did change a little bit and get rearranged. And another change that happened this year was they just rearranged the grants to others. They lowered that down from 134 to 120, and they increased the internal programs up to 33,600. So they just plan on doing a little bit more internal this year. But other than that, it stayed fairly close from this year to last year. Any changes to that? Okay, we can move on to cemetery if everyone's ready. So we do have our cemetery department now. We did not change any of the revenues from this year to the next year. They do see one summer staff. It gets funded out of this department. And we do see a transfer to reserve, $7,500. However, that is kind of linked to our perpetual care revenue that we receive each year. So 100% of that perpetual care revenue goes into the reserve, and that is there to fund future expansions, any repairs and maintenance that are needed at the cemetery, even things like the parking lot, all that kind of stuff.
Dr. Vickers, is this summer staff one of the 4 that we've, so this is over and above, so now we're at 5?
No, so the cemetery always gets one summer student, but it is part of the park's overall summer students. So last year they did have this cemetery student.
Oh,
as well.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
Just leave one there also. Sorry.
On Thursdays, everybody's there.
Yes.
And
We-
that one,
we-
so I assume that one guy, he moves on somewhere else too.
Absolutely, yes.
You know, you just,
We
it's
do just, yeah.
allocation.
Right, correct. We just allocate the one salary.
Sorry,
here.
or girl.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, we'll bring it up again, yeah.
Sorry, yeah, I did, had a question. What does open and close graves mean? What is that budget?
So it means exactly that. It is to open, dig the grave, and to close the grave. So, most of the time, the plot is already purchased and already owned by someone. So when they have to come use it, now they have to do a booking, we have to go out, we send our guys down, we dig it, and we'll wait there at the cemetery, far away, obviously, while the ceremony's happening, and then they'll actually go in right after and close it. But there is a cost to that, so we do charge people that, and it's more on the weekends and evenings and weekends if we have to pay overtime, and as well as in the winter time, we pay more because now they have to steam the ground, and it takes a little bit more effort.
And there's also an opening charge on the columbarium too.
Yes, but it's much less. It's not as much of a cost as the open and close, but we do have to send someone with a
Yeah.
special key, open it up.
Yeah.
Yep. Key to the crypt, yeah.
What are the permits? What
In-
is permits?
Yeah, so when someone is looking to install a headstone, and normally they contract out to like a monument company to do that, our guys have to go out and mark it, and we call it a cemetery marker. It's basically like a permit. They're applying to have this. They have to tell us the specs, the size, and then we approve it just in size. We don't approve the actual item, but just to make sure that it fits with our bylaw. Yeah. Is there more? Okay, are we gonna move on, or, I don't know.
Yeah, sorry, I was,
Okay. Okay, let's move to planning. Okay, so in planning, we have, this is where a lot of our permits come from. So first, our plumbing, electrical, and gas. We did increase that up from 35,000 to 50,000 this year. Our development permits, that did go down to $6,000. So that's everything that the development officer does. We do some compliance certificates out of this department as well. So that's when someone brings their RPR, which shows the plot plan of their house and all of their outbuildings and whatnot. And we verify that everything is correct. Safety code fees. So this is just an in and out on our budget. So we do charge everyone a safety code fee when they get a permit of some kind, a building permit. And then we have to remit that back to the province on a monthly basis. So that's just an in and out. So even though it says $2,500, it may only be 1,000 in and out, or it could be 5,000 in and out, so. Subdivision application fees we also have, that's unchanged, and that's strictly based on if there's a subdivision application or not. Our building permits is at 70 still. Other applications, that could be something like a rezoning application or some other type of application that has a fee. And then we have our offsite levies, and this as well is just an in and out. So there's an offsite levy that we receive as revenue, and then at the end of the year, we'll put that entire amount into the offsite levy reserve. So in this department, we do pay for contracted services, so our MuniSite, our GIS software is paid through here, as well as our Altalis subscription. As well as our planning services. So we do have PCPS contract is through here, so that's $20,000. And we also have an additional $10,000 for other planning support as well. That was lowered down from $40,000. So normally it was $20,000 for the contract and $20,000 for other support, and we did lower it to 30 this year with the intention of most likely increasing it back up in the following year. And we have those grants to others, so that facade program is in here at 10,000, and the infill program is what we're gonna talk about cutting, but in a different way. So we're gonna leave it in here as an item, but we're gonna take the money from this year that has been unspent, put it to a reserve, and then pull reserve money to offset that $60,000, so that will free up that $60,000 in the budget. Well, no, so that's part of that 60,000, so we still need to find the 60,000.
Yeah.
That's part of the, yeah, already included in there, but. Yeah. Sorry. Okay. Was there anything else on here that anyone wanted to look at or talk about? Okay. Then we'll move to subdivision land. So this is quite a bit different this year than it was last year. We are identifying the lot sales potential. So we have bumped that up to $2 million for lot sales. Another thing we did include for is the mortgage interest in the amount of $264,000. And that is for the industrial land payment that will be coming out next year. And then you can see that transfer to the reserve has ballooned up to 1.66 million to net this department down to zero.
So not today, but, you know, once you find out, Director Vickers, like interest on a line of credit, what I think I would like to see is, you know, is the plan as we sell the land go to pay down the line of credit? So the interest is on the balance, so it's getting less and less and less, as opposed to a mortgage where it's the same for 10 years, penalties pay out, there's no flexibility to it. So I would like to see those two compared and kind of, you know, see what the return is on
Okay.
those two options at some point.
I can do that research, yeah. Okay, yeah, I can do that. It won't be today, obviously, but.
No, just kidding. Yeah, there's no rush. We're,
Yeah.
you know, maybe when you bring them, well, when you bring that forward to council and
Okay, you betcha. Can definitely do that. Oh, yeah. Okay. Okay, any other questions on land? Okay, well, good. We'll move on to the campground. So the campground includes the revenue that we receive from the Lions Club, which in this year is $17,000. We just renewed the agreement last year, and that includes that update. We do have a small portion for repairs and maintenance in the campground, but other than that, it's just the utilities, natural gas and electricity, and then an $8,500 transfer to reserve. Is there any questions on the campground? No?
Do have one. So I know we did a significant dig there last year because we had a break in a water, or we had to replace a water valve or something. That doesn't show up here per se, so is that kind of get watered down in the rest of our facilities, or?
So, was it last year? I thought it was this year.
I can't remember.
That we actually, what we installed was a meter at the beginning of the campground, at the start of the campground. So we did that for our own monitoring, for usage within the campground and stuff. So that was on us.
Outside of.
Yep. Yeah, it wasn't a
So
break
it's in
related
our
to the park.
infrastructure somewhere, because we had to dig up the road and everything, right?
That was a few years ago, I believe, before I was here.
As I walked last
did you guys get a bump?
spring, no, in the spring, literally, they were digging up the road right at the entrance to the campground and
Yep. That was this year.
repositioning like a manhole cover.
Yep.
That's this year.
Yeah, that was this year, and that was
Yeah, so-
the water meter vaults.
So that's in our infrastructure somewhere else, not on the campground.
Yeah, yeah, wasn't due to the campground any issues.
Right, okay, thank you.
Just talking about books. I'm just happy, living the dream. With my buddy Gal.
Okay.
My buddy Gal, E-Man.
Okay, shall we move on to? I know, you're getting out of control.
You were so close.
Should we take a break? Does anyone need a 5-minute break or something? Okay. Let's take a quick break. a couple more left if we'd like to get through this review again before the day. So next things up is economic development. So the big thing in this is the addition of the municipal intern. We did account for the grant revenue. They do pay $60,000 for an 18-month program. However, there will be some expectation that we pay for some, so that is going to be a net cost us by about $45,000 per year. Yeah, and this also pays for our economic development support, so Factor 5 is primarily, is funded 100% out of this budget as well, under contracted services.
CEO Becker, do you see Factor 5 like continuing to support the ECDEV Advisory Committee throughout the coming year and like
I do.
other initiatives, obviously, and
Yeah, I think to advance the strategy, we still require the efforts of Factor 5. And I think over the forthcoming years, we could start to scale back perhaps if you can up the capacity at the EDO and build that in. But I think right now it's important for us to advance the strategy. I think Director Jenkins, I'm not sure if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, I would agree. I think through this next year, they'll still be quite instrumental, and then, yeah, as we go from there, we should be able to be increasingly independent.
I guess pivoting off of something that I heard Councillor Wing say yesterday, outside of budget, it would be nice down the road to kind of know what is the goal for the end of this year? Like, what do we hope to achieve? And I would assume Factor 5 and the committee has to know what that is. Just so that we all have that feeling of what the progress steps look like.
Yeah, it totally, it's a good question. And so we're working a little bit with
I don't
transitional, strategic steps to help us with building the work plan. So we'll come back to you and share our work plan. It'll show well, the priorities piece too, but what is in the work plan for ActDev, age-friendly, and so on and so on. So yeah, we'll build that out so council can see that.
My point is, as a councillor, if somebody asked me, so what are you trying to achieve by when?
Right.
That you have
yeah.
some answers.
Yeah.
But, yeah, thank you.
and the website in here, is that like building on what we have, or is that going to be kind of a new website just for ECDEV?
That's within the ECDEV actions of the plan. So this, and actually the app isn't in this ECDEV budget. That's not accurate, but yeah, it would be within the Power Place document. There's a bunch of action steps associated with the CED brand and how that plays out.
So then, like a new website this year then?
Whether that's a full new website, whether that's just social
Okay.
media channels to start with, we don't know
Okay,
what that is.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion on that? If not, we can move on to tourism. Okay. So this primarily has our communication department salaries in this department. It also has an operating project for $10,000 for downtown tactics. The big item here is special events. It was sitting at $65,000. We have lowered it down to $40,000 for this year in a way to save some costs. So yeah, is there any questions on that?
Sorry, I keep putting my light on all the time. That's kind of going, stop it. The special events is a concern for me. I realize you said that, 40 is kind of what you did this year, but I go back to our strat plan and, it's events. And, if we go back to Market on Main, I know last year we kind of got pulled out of that event festival type atmosphere. Are we, going back in there? I know we probably don't know yet, depending on what the chamber wants, but I'm just wondering if we're better to leave it at like 60 and 65, see where
We can up it, yeah.
comments?
Yep.
That's-
Would you take some out of recreation and culture, like there's reserves?
Well, I don't know where it's coming from yet, but
Yeah.
I'm just,
That's what I'm asking.
or,
So we wouldn't normally pull from that reserve to pay for this. We would pull from our operating reserve to pay for anything operating related.
Okay.
so 339.
But it is possible we could.
Yeah, no, and that's what I thought, we were looking at the reserves in the future for different, our utilization.
So I guess my question would be, not fully understanding it, is the intent to spend 60, or is it to, are we trying to target what we think we'll spend, and obviously you can always pull if you need it.
Yeah, I
And,
think so.
and you have questions, I have questions, you know, again, back to that endpoint, where do we see ourselves going with the market on Main? We don't know that yet, we have to wait. Yeah,
I guess, yeah, I get, there is the potential you can just go over, but it's difficult, I think, for staff to try to plan how much they may have for each of these events without knowing what that number is. So that if they know it's like, okay, well, we have 12,000 for Canada Day, we have, you know,
so how
$3,500
much
for
did we
each of
spend
these.
this year?
Yeah, we're on track to spend 40-ish
Right.
for this year. But that was with a sort of, reduced role in Market on Main. We haven't done a community awards event, for 3 years now, I think. So those are different, things that we, haven't done to their fullest extent yet. But yeah, I think it would be better to have a hard number so that, because then we go within that number and try to budget for each of those events.
I just think we talk so much about events and festivals and how important it is to the community, and we hear what an impact, positive impact it has on the community, and
And this line funded a fair bit of the energy hub and those, the CED events that we've had to date as well.
Okay.
So, yeah.
okay, so we'll go Councillor Hystad, Councillor Wing, and Councillor Dunham. Does that work? Because everybody's got their hands up.
So to me, I saw 65,000 for the year before, right?
Yeah.
So, and then we got 40, and I know that you could keep it the same. Like, I think that's, we're unsure of that number because of, Market on Main, additions here and there. Just keep it the same rather than keeping at 40 in my mind, because this is a focus of ours, I believe. That's, that's where I'm coming from.
Councillor Wing?
Thank you, Mayor Barkley. Yeah, I actually don't think that the focus of this conversation or this amount should be the Market on Main. The town made a contribution last year, absolutely, as far as shutting the roads down and all of those things that take human resource capital and absolutely budget. And graciously provided money for entertainment at the market, but I think more importantly, it's a matter of talking about what our strategies are relative to why we want events. What are we trying to accomplish as a town, and what are we trying to build capacity for in the community as a whole? So when I look at this list and think, the parade and the skate park and what we've just been through last week with the Christmas tree and those kinds of things, the market is just a really, really tiny piece of it. And yeah, the chamber's got some significant work to do around that. So if the chamber says we're not going to do markets anymore, and I'm just saying, throwing this out there, if they say we are not going to do markets, what is the strategy that we as council and the town have relative to providing opportunities regardless in the community? And so if we've got the 65,000 or if we've got 40,000, then that will guide us as far as saying this is how we can be involved, and these are some of the opportunities that are important to us. So if we want to maintain it at 65, I'm good with that. I'm also good with dropping it to 40 and looking for other opportunities in the community to add into the resource pool.
Councillor Dunham?
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. I guess, okay. Role as counselor, role as community person who has helped with several events in the community. Speaking as council role, seeing the capacity of the town and what happened like with Canada Day and with other things and with the community standing committee and the lack of people stepping forward to that. I wonder about like with Winterfest, with new potential events, is there even a capacity to do that? Do we just need to look at what we have right now? And as Councillor Wing said, turn to the community, look for the Innisfail Planning Society, maybe to take an additional event on. They have their Scarecrow Fest and Harvest Festival. Maybe it's something that we look to the community to do. I'd be comfortable with putting this up a bit, whether we need $65,000. I don't see it. I really, you know, with helping organize 3 events this past year, seeing how much this community will step to the plate to help fund these events, to make sure that it's free and accessible to everyone. Yeah, I personally, I'd like to see it increased a bit, whether I think we need $65,000, even though it is, you know, community events and culture, and that is a big part of what we're trying to push. I think that there is so much in the community already helping with that. I'd like to see maybe a little bit less pressure on the town to make these happen and us, you know, reach into that capacity within the town itself, like not as in the town, but as in, you know, the citizens and the volunteers.
Yeah, I think that's where my chain of thought is going to, is our capacity, and do we support an energy and a group of people that are already advancing and desire to do so right now, and then looking at our own internal ways to support. And I was going to go, do you want these to be built upon, or do you want a list to be larger? The list is larger, then it'd be going to Councillor Dunham's, probably his vision. But if you want to spruce up what we're doing already, that's probably okay. But I think we're kind of pretty much at capacity, Megan, on the events internally and support. Like to take on more would be probably another resource required on another side. I'm not sure what your thoughts are there, but.
Yeah, I would think time and that staff resource becomes more of the limiting factor than the monetary. But yeah, as mentioned, a lot of our events that are also funded through this, aren't necessarily those, you know, full, like the parade, the whole town comes. Some of them are the much more like the targeted CED events, or if we're doing more energy focused events, those types of outreach. And even things like the Market on Main. We did I think we still spent $15,000 between entertainment and funding porta potties to be there every week. Like.
Well, and I think that's, I think what I'm trying to get at, I'm
Yeah.
not just pointing out Market on Main, but I don't
Yeah.
care what event goes on in Innisfail, the town of Innisfail is supporting it to some degree.
Yeah.
So whether it's an external person, group doing it, or whether it's in the town, it's still being supported by the town. And so I'm not saying let's add to this list, I'm just saying let's make sure, because events and festivals have been such a focus and it creates the culture and the attitude in the town, that let's not kind of lose sight of that and shrink it.
Just Janice and then me, your worship.
Sorry, missed your hand again. Gavin is not helping.
Oh, man, I need a bigger hand. This is just an observation from what I'm just sort of seeing in other communities around what happens when these kinds of activities, community-based activities, change. And it's interesting because I look at the rationale around why, you know, a major city, the Downtown Business Association isn't going to put up a Christmas tree, or another city where there's not a Santa Claus parade or hasn't been for a few years, and everybody immediately shoots bullets at the municipality around, you know, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? And so I think it's just part of I think I would like to see us be really conscious about bringing in being more inclusive, sharing the ability to have capacity to do these things. And then I think therefore giving the community a little bit more ownership around what happens and when it happens and how we resource them. So we have great energy in this community for sure. And I think if we can continue through the great work that Megan does and the rest of the town staff, Public Works, all of them, if we can continue to just plant those seeds and keep them nourished in some small way, I like the Scarecrow Festival came back, and so I think that's as much our job as the rest of it as well. So, yeah, I just I think we have a role to play, and sometimes we lead from the front, and sometimes we lead from behind. That's all.
Yeah, and I think the community has done a great job at building that capacity with external partners. I mean, could have had maybe another partner on Market on Main as well this last year. And so, yeah, it's just, I always worry about sustainability as well. Like, who's ever doing something, things change, people get burnt out, and all of a sudden that event goes away because the 10 people that were doing it, external from the town, don't feel like doing it anymore. So I think if we kind of keep that core, what we've been doing, and then add around it, whoever wants to come forward. I always say to people, go talk to Director Jenkins, and if you want to have an event.
And things should be able to change over time. And just because you did it doesn't mean you always have to, right? I mean, things have life cycles, events have life cycles, and so having the opportunity to address always what are we trying to accomplish. That's for every organization and the town. It's such an important part of that.
Well, I was just gonna say, so processing what I heard, we spent 40, we were fairly active. I've heard Dale. So if we made it 50, then you're not at 65, which you probably won't spend. I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah, the reason why I thought 65, we were just coming out of the pandemic. There was a lot going on, a lot of unknowns, and that's why I said 65 because of capacity too. I'll live with wherever it lands, but that's why I looked at it. I'm like, you can adjust it or keep it the same. I'm not gonna get in a fight over it, that's for sure. I think it's important to recognize how important this is the last, yeah, come on. No, but we all knew how important all this stuff was to our community. To kind of draw back on it, I think that, that's not gonna help either. And this, we know that if we go over, we go over. That's life. Like, this isn't gonna kill our community.
It might. Yeah.
Like, seriously, this is the paper clips that it drives me nuts.
So Director Jenkins, if we added a gala, which we haven't done, or maybe we can get back, we have to get the cycle figured out again, but get back to doing the joint event with the chamber again, and, the Market on Main, and like you said, it was $15,000 at the end of the day, and
It's not very flashy what we did.
Exactly. Yeah, so I don't know, like some of the other things, like the twinkle lights that you're doing, like, is that part of this, or that's totally something else? Okay.
It's in a different part.
Just go back to the 13 ways stuff and all the things that we talked about in there, so. So where do we want to land? Do we want to go 50? How many hands up?
We can see Janice.
60? Oh, sorry, Councillor Wing, were you on 50?
I can't see what anyone else is doing, so I'm kind of
you don't
voting
need to.
blind.
You don't need to, it's a surprise.
Can't see you. 50 is fine.
Anybody for 60? Yeah. 60, so 3 60s and 4 50s.
55.
Yeah, 55, yeah, going once.
Down, Jason.
What's that?
Well, he said
I like
200,
Rob.
so I told him to sit down, right?
Okay.
No.
So, Well, I don't know. You need to ask that.
Just listening, just hearing what Director Jenkins said, can we meet at 55,000 as a council?
Yep.
Who would like 55?
Yeah, let's go.
Or 55?
Look at that, that's teamwork.
6.5, 6.5. for-
Well, as far as I know, we're adding 25,000 and we're taking 160 out, so we're still taking out like 125. But if we're putting stuff back in, we gotta find more, somewhere else to cut though.
What's the number now?
No, I thought we dropped and we had to find more.
We do,
We
yeah,
do,
we
okay,
do now,
okay.
yeah. We had to find 60, we're adding in 15, so now that's 75. And DocuSign is going in, right? So now we have to find 80. And then we'll talk about the art policy, because that, whenever you want.
Make a motion.
Or, do you want to quickly, we have about 5 tabs left to go through, and then we can maybe go do in camera. At least get these, just the review. Okay, we can go a bit quicker too. Okay, so community service programs, this primarily does our joint use rentals, as well as any of our programming revenue comes out of here. We do have contracted services, $8,000 in there to pay for any of the instructors that we do have. And there is a transfer to reserve, but that's for the joint use. So the revenue and expenses net out, and whatever the difference is, we either pull from or transfer to the joint use reserve. And this does have the one summer student for the skate park is out of here. Any questions? Okay. Community services admin. So this has our solar farm revenue, or the revenue, the community benefit fund revenue from elemental energy. So that you can see that coming in at $20,000. Then you also see a corresponding expense of $20,000 in grants to others. However, if we don't spend all that $20,000, we do have to put that into a reserve to be funded out in a future year. We don't just absorb that on the bottom line. We also have grants to others in here. The Historical Village increased their ask to $30,000, so that's that. And then community grants has stayed the same at $13,000. So that did go up from 40 to 43,000. Okay, so if there's no other questions, we'll move to the arena. So the arena is back up to kind of pre-COVID levels for our revenue. And we did actually include some increased revenues from our rates and fees bylaw as well. So our ice rentals is showing an increase of 1.25%, and our dry surface rentals is going up by 2% as well. Yeah, was there any questions on that? We did increase the transfer to reserve from 85 to 100. So that could be a way we could go back to 85 for this year, and then in a future year go up to 100. We don't want to take too much out of those transfer to reserves, but it could be a way to find a little bit right now. No? Okay, we'll move on to the pool. Oh. Yeah. Yeah.
We can talk about it now.
Staying at 85 and taking that and moving it back over.
Are you okay?
Yeah, my own view, and you can easily, my view is you need to start building that reserve. We have not done that, but that's my own, we need to do it sometime.
Take it to 87.
So when we get to the end of this, we'll probably be 75, 85 out, right? So like, would you recommend that we take that out of operating reserve? I mean, is that what it's there for? Right, to kind of
It
stable
is
out the
there for
times
that,
where.
and we've never used it.
Yeah.
The only thing is, we just wanna caution that we're not taking too much out, just cause we don't know what inflation's gonna look like next year. We're already proposing a 3.75% increase, likely that's probably maybe not enough, so we wanna make sure there's room in the budget next year to kinda absorb some of those things as well. However, with that being said, you guys can pull from reserve if that's what you would like to do.
So
And
what
if we get
else?
down to about 70 or 80,000, that's much better than the 200,000 that,
Well, that's kind of
we
where we're at
started
right now, right? It's
Yeah.
like
about
85.
80, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Thanks.
So was there a definitive answer on the reserve issue here for?
Leave it. Then let's leave
Leave it?
that,
Okay.
yeah. Let me ask, just a quick question. So going back to the solar farm that we're working on, what would be the turnaround time until we would see that live and we would start seeing revenue generated from that? What sort of, how many years are we looking at for
Oh,
that?
the solar farm?
Yeah,
It would be dependent on, I guess, the process that we go with it, next year. Could be operational within like 18 months.
okay. Thank you.
Can I ask a question? Please? Hello?
Hello?
Okay.
Yes, you can. Yes, please.
Thank you. This is just going back to the arena for a second. Do we actively market available ice vacancies? Does the town actually have an opportunity for outside users to rent our ice? Or do we essentially just rent our ice to Innisfil minor hockey and figure skating and the Eagles and kind of let it go from there?
No, we actively market, and when those regular users turn back ice that they're not gonna use, Christy gets on the phone and phones whoever she can to try to sell as much as we can.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Looking at the contribution from the county, I think that's something as well. Wouldn't we wanna, pardon me? Yeah, coming Monday. So,
Can I just make a comment on it?
Yeah.
And I'm not overly defending, but when you look at the overall budget, basically we tend to think it's an 80-20 to 70-30 is typically where county use to town use falls. At 182,000, that's 22% of the operating budget of the arena. So on that, if you start to break it down from that angle, it's not completely out to lunch on the operating contribution.
you go on. You're revved up.
No,
You
I'm
go-
not.
No?
No, but I guess my only comment to that would be, yeah, that covers 20% of operating, but
The building it and all those other things. Infrastructure. That's where my head's at.
And the agreement isn't intended to cover capital. That's
Yeah.
not what it is. We have had some discussions about future capital planning and trying to set up the proper channels, because it seems like we get a capital project and then we ask the county for money. We don't necessarily involve them in our planning. They don't have a say in what recreation amenities we actually construct, but then they do contribute to their operating, so
Yep,
there's.
no, I
and
get
very
it.
Yeah.
generous on the skate park.
Yeah.
Like they were, yeah, terrific.
Just thought I'd ask.
Okay. Are we good to move on to the pool? So the pool is back up to pre-COVID levels as well for their admissions and lessons fees as well. And again, we did see that Red Deer County contribution as well. They kind of mimic each other, the arena and pool. We do have operating projects as part of the pool center, so we do have some men's partitions that need to be fixed. Some are missing doors, and stuff like that. So we also need some washroom fixtures as well as some spray park electrical work. And one of the big things is we did identify a new transfer to reserve for the pool, which we have not had in many, many years. So we are putting $50,000 into the pool. However, at the end of 2023, we take all of the items out of reserve to pay for the rehabilitation at the pool that year. So even though we're putting 50 in, we're still taking it all out to spend, so. So is there any questions about the pool or anything that you want to dive into, look at anything more, a little bit more detail?
Dive into, Erica? Really?
Well done.
You're killing me here.
I didn't mean to, yeah, at least it's not, we're not wiffle waffling this time, okay? Okay. Subconsciously, my mind must like be there.
Grabs the puns.
It's like, yeah.
Do you have a burning question? No.
Yeah, okay. Anywho. Shall we move on to facilities? Okay, two tabs left before we can have some free talk, but. So this has a lot of rentals and leases in it. So they have the Kemp House, so all the leases at the Kemp House go through here. We have the Curling Club lease, any of the LLC rentals. So this is primarily like the weddings or anytime someone books that LLC room. And the senior center rent is through this department as well. And there is a portion of Red Deer County contribution that comes through here. So we do have a contracted services that's new this year, and that is our Hippo asset management kind of software. So that kind of tracks our, whenever we have work orders, when it has to do with buildings, it is run through that program, and then we can generate reports and stuff at the end of the year or at the end of multiple years. And we do have a $10,000 transfer to reserve, and that is strictly for the curling rink in this department. So yeah, we do have $10,000 for the curling rink reserve and $5,000 for curling rink, just like building maintenance or anything they need there.
Sometime, Director Kennedy, and again, like no rush, but I'm curious at some point, like what the usage is on the community room at the LLC.
Yeah, we can pull that, the report and what we charge on, because there is a fair amount of usage that is free usage essentially of the facility as well.
Okay, we'll go to the last tab here, so that's the library. So we did identify a portion of the Red Deer County contribution in this department, so that's in here at $10,980. But the big chunk here is the grants to others, and that is the Innisfil Library contribution at just over $155,000, or basically $156, and we have the Parkland Regional Library contribution at $70 in here. Okay, so we can talk about this. So the art policy, you guys had talked about wanting to include some dollars, maybe not the full 30 as it'll be the first year, kind of getting the program going. There was some talk yesterday about a $10,000 amount being put back in.
Everybody okay with 10?
With art policy?
Well, it's just a fund to
Yeah.
kind of get things underway and start building a fund so that there's funds there to replace murals or whatever kind of projects that are being done, or hire an artist to
Correct, yeah.
do some work going forward on public buildings.
Yes, and you will see
Not private
another
buildings.
policy back in, right? You have seen a draft before, and we did want to put some dollars in the budget, because if you guys pass the policy, we wanted to make sure there was something there to actually do some of those undertakings.
That's why my question was about the recreation or the culture reserve. Like that's where I was going, like for that, can we use that reserve to offset that? But you had meant,
So in a way, what we would do is we would just lower that transfer to reserve. So if it's sitting at 200,000, let's say, that's going into that rec and culture, if we wanted to offset the art policy, we would just transfer 190 in and leave that 10,000 on the budget to pay for that, is what we would do. So yes, in a way, you could essentially reduce that and pay for some of these things, yes.
Yeah, and that's where my head was going, like, if this was something that, you know, we were passionate about, like, you have a reserve to utilize, so that's where I was coming from. But let's go through each line and,
So art policy at 10,000, so events, you guys had just kind of picked the 55, so that's an increase by $15,000. Social procurement is still in, so we'll leave that in. The reduced fire budget, so that was that reduction to the transfer to reserves. It was at 75, we wanted to put it to 100, we lowered it down to 80. So there's that 20,000 that we had wanted to increase, but didn't. And then there's the operating project for the roads department, that Main Street intersection and sidewalk, 20,000, that's only one intersection, to get that special paint, that thermal paint that's a bit more long-lasting. So we will bump it this year, but likely next year we will have to bring it in, yeah.
So was that 70, Eric, in total?
So, let's see. So that's 90,000 that we have to find, because the three items that we're bringing in is 30. So in the cuts we did, took us down to 60, so now we need to add 30, so that's $90,635 that we need to find, or
Your Worship, I'm confused about the reduced fire budget. Like, so we are adding everything with, what we were,
It's a reduction of, to reserve.
oh,
I
okay,
can't do it from here.
All right.
I could,
sounds good.
yeah, I'd have to
Thanks.
email this over to someone, or I could, okay, hold on. Hold
So
on a
where
minute.
were we at, Director Vic? Because we've taken 50 out of this page, right? We've gone from 30 to,
These weren't in the budget.
Yeah,
these
none of
weren't
these
in.
were in the budget.
gotcha.
These
Okay,
were,
sorry.
were considerations that we had thought about maybe adding.
Right, where it says budget considerations, yes. Headline.
So what would you like to do now?
Could do 1% franchise fee.
That would cover all of that.
Did we find out if we're at 15 or 17?
No, I'll send an email to Kayla. But either way, we'll go up to 18, right, if that's,
Are we 17?
we're supposed to be. I'll double check with Kayla, because we did the advertising, we did everything we were supposed to do and sent it off to them, so we'll see what's up.
Are you able to email her now? Like, do you think she would respond?
I can try to have an email.
Or, is it- what's that? No? To-
For what period of time was that?
So they change around May each year,
Yeah,
so it would have been from May till now.
and he thinks he's at 15?
He said
We
15,
think that's
17, yeah,
for that entire period from May?
yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, I don't want to go up.
What are we at now with that number? Over
90,000.
90?
Yeah.
Okay, when are we, sorry, Don, go ahead.
Yeah, I just have a question. We have a number of projects with what I think are budget estimates. You know, you've went out in your expertise and said, you know, it's gonna be $100,000, but at the end of the day, that project may come in at, let's say, 80,000 actual cost. So that's a surplus of 20,000. So can those surpluses, should we sit on the 90 today, and those surpluses, as the projects are, your RFPs and everything come back in, you'll know the actual cost, and then you'll have an actual number, and then if it's, let's say, 30,000, then go back to your operational reserve and take it out of there, whatever the differences are.
Are you talking about the capital projects? What projects are you talking about?
Well, I guess it is
So the capital projects, even if they're under budget, that's not gonna affect the operating at all. So some of the operating projects that we have, yes, if they are under budget, then that.
okay, so what would those
balance.
operating projects be?
So
I
that
guess the
would
question
be-
I have is, you know, we're in a $27 million budget, we're squabbling over $90,000, right? Which is a very, very small percentage. And I know that we shouldn't deficit budget, or that we can't.
We can't have a
We
deficit
can't.
budget. We have to have either a zero or,
So, but there will be projects that come in always
Absolutely.
that are under the estimated cost, because I think I heard a couple times that we at times overestimate, just so that we're on the cautious side, right? So with that, will we be able to make up the 90,000 that we're sitting on today?
I guess, I would caution on that because, we also had projects come over this year as well for unfortunately the first time. But it's becoming way harder for us to estimate. So, yeah, we do our best to provide you with budgets, but, with the market the way it is, and as everyone knows, it's way more volatile now, so I would caution towards assuming projects are estimated highly, especially with, you know, unfortunately, our track record being broken and having 2 projects come on over budget this year.
Yeah, I wasn't aware the projects came in over budget. I don't think those numbers were presented to council, not that it matters, but I wasn't aware of that. I know in years past, we've always sort of overestimated, and that's why I brought it up. I would recommend that we have the operational reserve in for $90,000, that, you know, we're gonna nickel and dime this stuff to, and if we've got the money in the operational reserve, then we go after that. Unless you want to sit nickel and dime for $90,000.
Counselor Heisted?
Yeah, actually, Don has a good suggestion, and I was just gonna ask, this is the big part, when are we gonna go on camera, as well as, you know, we had a bucket that was $100,000, and this is the, to me, and it's, you know, it's all important, the paper clips are all important, but, it's doing what's right for our citizens as well as our strategic goals, ensuring that, you know, we're offering a great service. And, but, you know, like, if we want to cut a $90,000, there's a bucket, you know. If we want to count paper clips, we can count paper clips. That's why I think all this stuff was presented really well. It's been a really good 2 days, but this is the part that in my job and what we do gets, you know, we get hung up on $27 million budget and we're $100,000 or $90,000 away. So that's just my thoughts.
So I'm just going to throw this thought out there and guard myself from Councillor Bates, but like a 1% franchise fee on Fortis. So I talked to Dave, and their franchise fees are based on transmission and distribution charges, not on the RRO. Calgary is different. He said it's different all over the place depending on who the provider is. But, you know, if you think, I don't know, say $60 on your bill, like that's a 60-cent increase. And that 1% brings in $96,000, if I recall. Is that what it was?
yes, yeah.
And he also mentioned that you can leave out those high
Yeah.
energy users out of that increase.
So like a man bill, we could,
Yes.
we
If you
could
can identify certain
exclude them.
companies you want to leave out, you can do that.
So as a citizen, I think a lot of the people have, especially since the utilities started putting it on there as a line item that even puts town of Innisfail right on it, people are much more aware of it than they used to be. And they realize it's just another tax. And I guess the thing that frustrates me, if you were to put the ATCO and the Fortis out there, what our total is right now, it's a couple $1 million or more, isn't it? I don't know.
Yep.
So 5% of that goes straight to the federal government, right out of our taxpayers' pockets as GST. And I'd rather take it as a tax personally, as a personal citizen. I'd rather take it as a tax and every penny goes to my town. Just, back, you asked me why I keep coming up with this stuff, and yeah, that's. No, and the other thing, I don't know where and when we'll get to it. Many years ago, we were booking surpluses all the time, and I'm not sure if we're heading for any kind of a surplus this year whatsoever.
I don't know yet.
But those surpluses were so large that you could count on some slush, if you will.
Yeah.
Different subject. Anyway, I ceased to be, maybe I can't vote on them anymore now that I have an e-car.
Maybe. Okay, does anyone else have any comments?
I guess, do we want to go in camera? And so I move, let me move in camera.
What are we talking about in camera?
Mine got eliminated.
I don't know, but we're likely not in camera yet, so
Okay.
just wait.
You got a kid in camera?
Just not press random buttons. I don't know where Carol went, she must have left for the day. She was supposed to be off today altogether, so she originally booked it off or wanted it off.
It's been- Yeah, thanks, Mayor Bark. And it's been said many times over the last couple of days here. Again, thanks for all you put together. I know this budgetary stuff gets pretty, pretty monotonous and, yeah. And you just seem to have the numbers right at your fingertips. It's pretty impressive on how you know this binder, and it sure helps us on behalf of myself and I think all my colleagues, I'd like to thank you again and the team for bringing all this together and making it as easy and as painless as possible. Thanks.
Well said, Councillor Harrison, yeah. We're good? Anything else? Okay, so we will have a motion to adjourn. Do we need that? What? Do we?
Move that we adjourn.
Okay. Okay.
On the stage.